Nico, we've known each other for 18 years and been together for 4, yet you're still more drawn to his scent than to me? I'm sorry, it was just an accident. The one I love is still you. I was a plain beta. To get stronger, I had been disguising myself as an Omega at the military academy. One day, I discovered that my alpha boyfriend had marked my true Omega roommate. I looked at Nico. Cheating comes in 2 flavors, once, or countless times. Let's break up. On the very day Nico and I broke up, I underwent my second differentiation, and I became. Now, all the careless things I'd said to the school alphas in the past were coming back to me. 1. What did you say you differentiated into? My friend Hugo shouted in disbelief. People around the milk tea shop turned to look, and I lowered my head, wishing I could just bury myself. Keep your voice down, don't you want some dignity? Hugo muttered, sulking, then leaned closer to whisper. So you really became an alpha? I nodded. He sucked in a sharp breath. Then, isn't it completely impossible with Nico now? I forced a bitter smile. It wasn't possible anyway. He's already marked Leo. Even rabbits don't nibble the grass near their burrow. If it weren't my roommate Leo who got involved with Nico, I wouldn't feel this hurt. We'd shared a dorm for 3 years, and I got along well with Leo. He had even joked about me and Nico. But now, Nico's mark appeared on the back of Leo's neck. I had been betrayed by both my boyfriend and my roommate. I took a big sip from the milk tea on the table. Alright, time to say a proper goodbye to the past. Go help me move dorms. Since I had differentiated into an alpha, I obviously couldn't stay in the Omega dorm anymore. 2. I deliberately chose a time when Leo was in class to move my things. But he had surprisingly taken a day off. Now he was lying on the dorm bed, a cooling patch on his forehead, and Nico's scent was overwhelmingly strong on him. I couldn't smell it before as a beta, but now it was crystal clear. I frowned instinctively, as an alpha naturally rejects the scent of another alpha. But Leo seemed to misunderstand. He struggled to sit up. Craig, let me explain. I was putting the last scattered items into a cardboard box. Fine. I'm listening. Go ahead. After a long pause, a timid voice came from behind me. Craig, you have no idea how much I've envied you. I used to think you were an Omega, chose Mecha piloting, yet your grades are just as good as any alphas, and you even have such an amazing boyfriend. Nico really loves you. My thing with Nico, it was really an accident. My heat came early. If Nico hadn't helped me, I would have gone into heat in public. The consequences would have been unthinkable. Craig, you're not an Omega. You don't know how terrifying this is for us. I hugged the box and turned to smile at Leo. I admit, I can't understand why you'd go out without suppressants when your heat was coming. Nor can I understand why, even though you could have borrowed some from classmates around you, you chose instead to fall into Nico's arms and cling to him. But none of that matters. If Nico loves wandering and biting at will, then I don't want him anymore. You can keep him if you like, I said. I bent down and raised an eyebrow at Leo. If he's willing, that is. 3. As I walked down from the dorm, I saw Hugo confronting Nico. Well, more accurately, Hugo was baring his teeth at Nico while Nico ignored him. Nico was tall, handsome, his hair messy over his forehead, still in his training uniform. Straight-backed, striking, with a hint of melancholy that drew wandering Omega's attention. The moment I came downstairs, he looked up at me as if he had radar. Always like this. Back when I was a beta with no scent, he could still find me in a crowd at first glance. The first person I babbled to as a child wasn't my parents, but this 1-year-older boy next door. He strode toward me, trying to grab the box in my hands. I stepped aside. The wind from his movement carried Leo's scent. When an alpha marks an Omega, they also get marked by the Omega's scent. Nico froze mid-motion, looking hurt. His voice low and hoarse. Shao-Chi. I'm sorry. It was just an accident, you know. You're the only one in my heart. I suddenly released my own scent. Our scents collided, and both of us frowned. Then I relaxed my face into a smile. I've become an alpha too, Nico. It's over between us. You can have a better choice, I said, looking up the stairs. He understood. I knew that Nico and Leo's scents actually matched very well. My best choice is you. I only love you. He stubbornly pulled at me, but I forcefully yanked my hand away. But I won't be with an alpha. From now on, I'll find an Omega. 4. After moving out of the dorm, I treated Hugo to a meal. He asked me, can you really let it go? I have to, I replied. Alpha and alpha never have a good ending. I don't believe love alone can overcome the repulsion of conflicting pheromones. Does Nico love me? Of course. I never doubted his love. I was mischievous as a child, always running before I could even walk steadily. I fell a lot, but whenever Nico was around, he was always the one underneath me, protecting me. Many of the small scars on his body were from keeping me safe. I've always been strong-willed. In middle school, I differentiated into a beta, but I was determined to get into the best military academy to learn mecha piloting. Nico never complained, training with me for 4 full years, going to military school alongside me, always looking out for me. Because I was sensitive to pain, he never fully claimed me. Even with an arrow drawn, he would still comfort me with ragged breaths. But the Nico who treated me so well, he was completely different the first time he saw Leo. Others couldn't feel it, but I knew. His gaze on Leo was softer than on anyone else. He was uncontrollably drawn to Leo. I lowered my eyes and smiled. Every time Nico went through a sensitive period, I used to think, if only I could differentiate into an Omega, I could ease his suffering. Turns out I've become an Alpha anyway, I shrugged. The bond between Alpha and Omega is natural. He can resist being with me, but he can't resist marking Leo. I trailed off, awkward, unable to continue, rubbing my face with open palms. Hugo's eyes softened with sympathy. All right, stop overthinking. Drink tonight, live for the moment. He poured me a full beer. I'm a light drinker, but tonight, I needed to drink until it all faded. 5. I blacked out from drinking. My head throbbed, and the scene in front of me made my stomach turn. A pale-skinned, long-haired man was lying beside me, completely naked. His shoulders, chest, and abdomen were covered in scratch and bite marks. I, too, was entirely without clothes. The air smelled of some kind of fluid, mixed with the scent of 2 alphas. Obviously, this man was also an alpha. I had slept with an alpha who wasn't Nico. My mind went blank. I checked behind me, no discomfort. I was still, the top. Just as I considered sneaking away, the man's eyes opened unexpectedly. He stretched lazily, like a proud Persian cat. The blanket slipped off him, revealing chiseled chest muscles, defined abs, and a clear V-line. A vein pulsed above his lower abdomen. He was still a muscular, top alpha. My mind went blank, and I blurted out, "All alphas, so I don't have to be responsible for you, right, HM?" The man made a low, lazy sound through his nose. Propping his head on one elbow, he raised an eyebrow. "Do you want to be responsible?" Seeing his face fully, I realized he was aggressively handsome. I swallowed. "Can I not be responsible?" "Sure, then goodbye." I dressed quickly and slipped away. 6. Why did I disguise myself as an Omega at the academy in the first place? Because I desperately wanted to get stronger. A plain beta like me, if I provoked the high and mighty Alpha Mecha students, most wouldn't take me seriously. But if I were an Omega, it would be different. They'd get excited and try to dominate me. So when I first enrolled, I set myself up as a beautiful but sharp-tongued Omega. Every strong Alpha in the Mecha department across 3 grades had been verbally challenged by me. Now, having differentiated into an Alpha, my karma had arrived. The Alphas who had held back because they thought I was an Omega no longer restrained themselves. Several Mechas attacked me at once. I had just differentiated and hadn't adapted yet, and for a moment, I was completely overwhelmed. Then a deep blue Mecha charged in, taking down the others and rescuing me. It was Nico's Mecha. In the locker room, I changed out of my training uniform, my hair soaked through. Nico came in, silently watching me. For some reason, I thought of the long-haired man from a few days ago, feeling a pang of guilt similar to cheating. But the next moment, it felt unnecessary. We were already broken up. "Don't help me next time." I draped a towel over my shoulders. I need to learn to handle everything on my own. "Nico, we're over." "Craig." Nico interrupted, rare anger on his face. "Don't say that. I didn't agree to break up. You're still my partner. There's no one else." 7. Nico and I parted on bad terms. After leaving the training ground, I carried my bag to a nearby hotpot restaurant to meet someone. "How've you been?" Hugo asked. "Same as always," I replied. "You don't seem very upbeat." I pictured Nico looking sad earlier. After so many years together, how could I not feel the pain? "What about you and Nico?" I frowned, not wanting to mention him. "Why do you ask?" Hugo sighed. "If you still like Nico, just let it be awkward for a while. Right now, it's hard on both of you. Back when you were in the Omega dorm and Leo was your roommate, Nico wanted to stick to you 24/7, so he naturally ran into Leo. Now that you've moved out, they won't cross paths. Think it through. You and Nico have been together for so long. With your temper, could you even find someone who tolerates you more than Nico does?" I fell silent, Nico's sad eyes replaying in my mind. Doubt crept in. I believed my decision was for the good of both of us. Because I loved Nico, I couldn't bear to see him suffer through sensitive periods. Even if we loved each other, alpha-to-alpha pheromones made even kissing painful. Dragging it out would only destroy what we had before. Can love really overcome pheromones? I asked Hugo. Hugo said seriously, when you were a beta, you never doubted. Why, after becoming an alpha, are you hesitating so much? Apart from Leo, is it that you don't trust Nico, or don't trust yourself? I finally understood. After dinner, I texted Nico to meet and talk things through. As I walked toward the school gate, I suddenly overheard someone say, I heard there was an Omega in heat in the dorm, and they got involved with an alpha right there. 8. I kept sending messages to Nico, but he never replied. Outside of scheduled Mecha lessons, he always responded instantly, even late at night. I gripped my phone tightly, anxiety building. Following the crowd, I headed toward the Omega dorm. Within 20 meters of the building, the area was completely cordoned off. Omegas were being helped out one by one. People murmured around me, who's in heat? Seems like it's the IT department's campus heartthrob. My hand tightened on my leg. I whispered to myself, IT department, Leo. Yeah, that's the name. I tugged at the corner of my mouth and asked, are there alpha suppressants? You came here without taking one, the person exclaimed in shock. He handed me a dose. Thanks. I took it mechanically. I injected it into my arm, feeling the cold liquid flow into my veins, merging with my blood. The empty syringe clattered to the ground, and I tore open the barricade and stepped inside. What the hell, dude, what are you doing? Hey, the dorm is off limits right now. My pace quickened, then I started running. Stop, student. Voices chased me for a moment before fading into the distance. As soon as I entered the familiar Omega dorm, I smelled their pheromones, thick, sweet strawberry candy scent. Back when I was a beta, Leo often shared strawberry candy with me. Nico, my boyfriend, had tried it once in his first year but never ate another. Even that first one, he frowned slightly after tasting it and gently passed it to me. Too sweet. Here, you eat it. I rolled my eyes but chewed it, doubling the sweetness on my tongue. Even unaware at the time, he still kept his distance. Now, standing in front of the dorm I had lived in for 3 years, I hadn't opened the door yet but I already knew the answer. That alpha was Nico. 9. The Omega's pheromones assaulted me. Even though I didn't like Leo, and even despised him, my body reacted. This was the natural attraction between Alpha and Omega. I put my hand on the doorknob. Amid the gasps from the crowd, I pulled the door open. The dorm was a complete mess. On the narrow single bed, 2 bodies were intertwined, both naked. Nico pressed over Leo, and multiple bite marks adorned the back of Leo's neck. Leo's face was buried in Nico's chest, soft breaths barely audible. Mixed with the sweet, cloying Omega pheromones came the hostile scent of another alpha. My glands burned, warning signals from another alpha. When my eyes met Nico's, filled with desire and anger, it felt as if my heart had been pierced by a blade. I let go of the doorknob and turned away. 10. My boyfriend had been with my former roommate. I became the laughingstock of the entire Mecha department. The alphas I had teased before grinned like they'd won a medal. Yo, isn't this Craig? Why are you still at the training ground at this hour? Your big brother not helping you practice? His big brother is busy practicing hand-to-hand combat with a real little O. I clenched my fists and didn't hesitate to strike the ringleader. From now on, no one would clear a path for me. No one would save me if I got cornered. Exiting my Mecha, drenched in sweat, my legs almost gave out. Suddenly, someone grabbed me. It was Hugo. Are you okay? He asked, concerned. I shook my head but leaned on him to stand. He walked me back to the dorm. Halfway there, I regained my strength, pushed away his supporting hand, and said, I've signed up for the Anti-God Special Training Camp. Hugo's eyes widened. What? Since when? This afternoon. Are you sure? That camp has a death quota every year. You just differentiated, maybe it's too soon. I've decided. Last year I didn't qualify, otherwise I would have signed up already. The camp only accepts alphas with perfect physical stats and combat skills. Last year, I hadn't been able to qualify, which meant I couldn't sign up with Nico. I regretted it for a long time. Who could have imagined that a year later, after my second differentiation, I finally met the requirements. 11. The anti-God camp started soon after registration. A week later, I boarded the plane with the other trainees, heading for the training island. Before takeoff, I got a call from a number I knew instantly. Nico flashed on the screen. For a moment, it felt like a lifetime had passed. Exactly 1 week, the duration of an Omega's heat, had just ended. I froze, and the phone automatically hung up. It rang again. I paused, then answered. My voice was unexpectedly hoarse. Hello. A deep, hoarse male voice came after a long silence. I just saw your message from that day. I'm sorry. Nico's voice carried unspoken pain. Can you hear me out? That day, Leo said you left something in the Omega dorm, so I went to help you retrieve it, and Nico, I interrupted softly. It's in the past. Since you marked Leo, let it be. We both need to move forward. I hung up and turned on flight mode, staring blankly out the plane window. The reflection showed my tear-streaked face. 12. Soon, there was no time to be sad. Upon arrival at the training island, the instructor immediately handed each of us a large camo bag. We were to pack all our belongings and march to the base under full load. Thousands of cadets from multiple academies marched all afternoon and through the night. By dawn, we reached the special training base, utterly exhausted. "Ah, another bunch of top A's," someone commented. I looked toward the voice. A tall figure emerged from the base gate, over 6 feet tall. Broad shoulders, long legs, posture upright yet casually relaxed. As he approached, I got a clear look at his face, flawless, strikingly handsome. Long hair, unusual in the military, tied neatly but adding a sense of commanding presence instead of softness. Why did he look familiar? My eyes widened. This was the man from my drunken one-night stand. He seemed to notice my gaze and relaxed, but his eyes remained sharp, piercing like a hawk. I froze, a cold sweat breaking out across my back. He looked away first, a mysterious smile on his lips. "Top A's, let me introduce myself. I'm Chase, the head instructor for this special training." He scanned the assembled cadets and smirked. "Now, the training officially begins. Everyone, reach the training field within 2 minutes and line up by height." 13. The training field was far, and no one made it there within 2 minutes. Forget lining up properly, everyone was penalized. We ran weighted laps all day. Only then did I realize that yesterday's weighted march wasn't even the real introduction to the camp. Today was. We went an entire day without food or water. By the end of it, more than half of the cadets had collapsed. But collapsing didn't mean rest. They were given a cup of glucose water and forced back into the field to continue running. Only at night did we get our first meal of the day. I devoured my bowl and immediately went back for seconds. When Nico returned from last year's camp, he ate like a starving man. But now I understood, an alpha starved for a day and a night is no different from livestock. One serving was never enough. After eating, I went straight back to the dorm to pack my gear. 8 people in the room, including me, introduced themselves. The first to speak wore a mysterious expression. "Do you know Chase's background?" "What background?" someone asked immediately. I soaked my feet while listening carefully. "Do you know the stripes on the head instructor's shoulders?" "Stripes? That expression, no way it's Pine Branch." The cadet snapped his fingers. "Pine Branch, plus a gold star. The youngest brigadier general in the Federation, commanding a standard army group." "No way. A brigadier general is here for special training?" I was shocked too. Chase looked about 30, and yet he had reached brigadier general. And I had slept with him. I remembered my own dismissive words from that night, and my mind went black. Could I survive special training on this island? "Do you know why Chase calls us the top A's?" "No, but it sounds gross." "Exactly. It's not because he thinks alphas are treasures, but because, in his eyes, we're all like babies, complete rookies in combat. So arrogant." 14. At 2 a.m., the piercing air raid sirens blared. The broadcast announced, "Top A's, get fully dressed and tidy your gear. Assemble at the training field in 3 minutes. Late arrivals will be punished." I didn't waste a second and jumped out of bed. Chase stood on the training platform, tall and relaxed as ever. At 2 a.m., we began training. Now I understood why the anti-god camp was ranked the top in the Federation. Everyone who completed it transformed completely in just 2 months. Chase's training could turn even a pig into a muscular fighter. Those who couldn't endure it were broken on the field. The first casualty was an alpha from the neighboring dorm, rarely smiling. Overexertion caused heart failure. He was rescued but could never return to the battlefield. He was sent back to the academy, never to pilot his beloved Mecha again. He wept uncontrollably before leaving. This incident acted like a fuse, or perhaps the last straw. The camp erupted. Thousands of cadets sat on the training field, refusing to move. "We're human, not livestock. Even a brigadier general can't treat us like this." Exactly. High-intensity training every day, no enough food, no proper sleep. It's inhumane. I didn't sit. I was among the few who didn't protest. We were labeled by those below us as traitors, lackeys. 15. Chase didn't punish the protesters immediately. Instead, he made us, those who stayed out of the protest, line up. He studied us with interest, tapping his whip on his palm. "Why aren't you joining the protest? You're part of the same group as the others." No sense of collective responsibility. His face was expressionless. No one spoke, so he singled us out. He tapped my chest with the whip and ordered, "You, speak." I straightened up, chest out, voice loud. "Sir, while I'm a cadet, I do not agree with the protesters. We came here to train, and we signed the disclaimer beforehand, knowing the hardships, even the possibility of death. Since this was our choice, we must accept the consequences. That was my honest thought, but Chase didn't look satisfied. Official. Boring. He paired us with the protesters for one-on-one matches. On the 10th arena, I was first to enter Arena 9. The C-class mechas were all uniform. It was a mecha battle. Seeing the endless rows of mechas, I was stunned at Chase's scale. Once suited up, I immediately felt my piloting flexibility, strength, and endurance had improved significantly. The hellish training had boosted my body and reflexes. I won the first match, then the second, the third. I won 7 in a row. The 8th, I lost, not because the opponent was stronger, but because I was completely exhausted. After exiting the mecha, my legs gave out, and I collapsed. My trembling arms barely supported me, preventing me from falling flat on the field. Sweat dripped from my jaw, leaving dark stains on the ground. Suddenly, a shadow blocked the sun from me. I strained to look up. It was Chase. He towered above me, seemingly enjoying my struggle. The protesters weren't entirely wrong. Chase was definitely a psychopath. Cursing me in your mind? He asked, chuckling lightly. Half squatting, he hooked the tip of his whip under my chin. Craig, right? You've lasted the longest so far, defeating 7 opponents. Your physical abilities are decent, but this perseverance, you're ruthless on yourself. No wonder your boyfriend has such a sense of crisis. 16. Hearing the words, my boyfriend, my gaze froze. You mean Nico? Chase seemed in a good mood, chatting casually with me. He was the top cadet last session. Thanks to his diplomacy, there were no uprisings among the cadets. He leaned closer, speaking softly as if sharing a secret between lovers. That was the first time in 8 years of the anti-God special training camp that no cadets revolted. I admired his leadership skills. Too bad he didn't want to stay in my military. His tone was full of regret, yet his gaze, sharp as an eagle, fixed on me. Guess why? I didn't want to answer. Chase obviously didn't know I had broken up with Nico, but he didn't let it go. He answered his own question. Because he said his boyfriend was still at the academy, and he wanted them to be assigned to the same military unit in the future. He flicked his whip against my cheek, his eyes cold and piercing like a snake's. At the time, I thought his boyfriend was a loser, and he had to accommodate him. Now I know you're talented too. I should have recruited both of you. A chill ran down my spine. A surge of danger spread through my brain. But the next second, Chase returned to his lazy demeanor and stood up. At this point, the protesters had the upper hand, simply due to numbers. They raised their arms, yelling, laughing, taunting the instructors. Then the instructors entered the field, including Chase. I sat in Arena 9, watching him in a training C-class mecha defeat cadet after cadet. At first, I tried to count, but soon lost track of how many he had beaten. I was completely immersed in his combat technique. Nico had taught me how to minimize mecha damage during battle. Now I was seeing how Nico's instructor fought. Precise, ruthless, not a single wasted movement, a pure, extreme aesthetic of violence. No cadet could last a minute under Chase. Was this the gap between me and the Federation's top soldiers? Chase's training mecha eventually broke from overuse. He walked up to the platform, tapped the microphone, and said lazily, "Wretches, enjoying yourselves, crying over this little bit of training? Retire now while you can. On the battlefield, your enemy doesn't care if you're tired or hungry. You will never be at your peak there. So you'd better train and compete with everything you've got. But I'm glad you revolted. Same old rule applies." Old rule? I asked Ryder after the session. He looked dejected. After a revolt, all training intensity doubles. Even I couldn't help cursing. Ryder muttered helplessly. I warned everyone not to revolt. These idiots didn't listen. I heard last session, some genius maneuvered everything to prevent a revolt. I didn't answer. According to Chase, the cadet who had prevented a revolt was Nico. Even now, thinking of him made my chest tighten. He had always been exceptional, the brightest among the crowd. The only flaw, his preference for alphas, was gone. His future was wide and bright. 17 days of training passed. I had less and less time to think of Nico. With the intensity doubled, I could almost doze while standing at attention, waking immediately at every command. 2 months wasn't long, but each day felt like a year. 3 days before the camp ended, news broke that shook the entire world. Cadets, your training ends early, but your military careers begin immediately. At 10 a.m. today, the Empire officially declared war on the Federation. The Empire and Federation were the largest 2 powers on the planet. As Federation soldiers, we had no choice but to obey. Once guns fired, precious lives became numbers. By convention, nuclear weapons and large artillery could not be used lightly. The first line of combat would be mechas. They would display each side's economic, technological, and military strength. Technology advanced, but war remained brutal. I volunteered for the front lines. Comrades rotated around me, but I stayed in position. Thanks to my performance, I kept earning promotions. As a junior officer, I was assigned under Chase. 18. Hunger, extreme hunger. 4 full days without food. I was near death. While capturing a fugitive, I was ambushed and trapped in an underground cavern. The exits were blocked by cave-ins caused by explosions. I lost contact with my team. In the darkness, I almost lost all sense of time. Before passing out, I faintly heard voices, but had no strength to respond. When I woke, I was in a military hospital bed. Chase was on the phone at my bedside. Seeing me awake, he hung up and came over. Up, how do you feel? My voice was hoarse. Did we catch the fugitive? This was my main concern. The fugitive's identity was unusual in the Empire. Chase stared at me for a long moment, then smiled. His handsome face lit up as if with brilliance. As expected from the best cadet in 8 years of the anti-God camp. Craig, you've just been promoted to lieutenant colonel. Hearing this, I knew the fugitive had been caught. Before entering the cavern, I had captured him. But to evade pursuers, I knocked him out, tied him up, and hid him. I distracted the pursuers alongside my teammates. I closed my eyes in relief and fell into a deep sleep. 19. After my promotion, I was assigned to a special operations squad directly under Chase. I became one of his elite soldiers, tasked with the most important and dangerous missions. Our team had 7 members, and I was the youngest, least experienced. Being directly under Chase meant I had frequent contact with him. 3 years had passed, and I no longer naively thought that I had taken Chase 3 years ago. That night, at most, it was just a drunken misunderstanding. Besides, I was wasted that night. Who had fun might be up for debate, probably only him. He probably doesn't remember much. Once again seeing Chase on the training field, I instinctively tried to turn a corner. He strode forward and grabbed the back of my collar. Hiding from me? Did you do something you're guilty about? No. I immediately denied it, standing at attention and saluting properly. Hello, Chase. He squinted at me in silence for a moment, then tugged my collar. I'm taking you to meet a few people. I stepped backward, stammering. Maybe, can you let go of my collar first? I can walk myself. Chase led me to meet several veteran generals inspecting the combat zone. Although I was just following behind, pouring drinks and running errands, I knew this was real mentorship. It was my chance to show my face in front of the generals. I smiled so much my face almost froze. After the banquet, I helped the drunken Chase back to his villa in the military district. A large wolf dog barreled across the yard, growling fiercely. Woof woof. Good, Mimi, don't block the way. The wolf dog lunged at me, then circled, tongue out, tail wagging. I was already struggling to support the nearly 6-foot Chase, and now my feet had nowhere to land. I almost tripped. Suddenly, a hand hooked around my waist. The drunk, staggering Chase opened his half-lidded eyes. Momentum carried me into his arms. I looked up at his sharp, mischievous eyes. Oh, throwing yourself at me, giving up. His hand slid down and pinched my ass hard. Not impossible either. I shoved him away, teeth gritted. You're faking drunk. Nonsense, I just sobered up now. Chase denied it and crouched to pet the dog. He glanced at me. Go get the dog food. Authority wins. I grumbled under my breath but went inside to get the food. Once indoors, sure that Chase couldn't see me, I rubbed my ass. Damn, his grip was strong. 20. I filled Mimi's bowl with food and carried it outside. Chase propped one leg on a chair, one hand resting on it, while brushing the dog with the other. Mimi, good boy. I put the food in front of the wolf dog and couldn't help but comment. Why did you name him Mimi? Now he thinks he's the same breed as the stray cats around the military district. He follows anyone feeding the cats. Such a handsome wolf dog. Chase raised an eyebrow. Isn't Mimi cute? Mimi paused, licked Chase's hand, then continued eating. Same twisted sense of humor as a bow, I muttered, pouting. Chase narrowed his eyes. His aura turned dangerous. You're not afraid of me at all now. My hair stood on end, but I was stubborn. Not afraid. A month in the special training camp plus a year in the military district, Chase had trained me countless times. From barely lasting 3 rounds under him to now being able to withstand dozens of moves. One day, I would defeat him. Suddenly, Chase laughed, and his cold aura vanished. My heart relaxed. But the next second, he pinned me to the grass. Chase knelt on both sides of my waist, restraining my legs. I instinctively swung a punch. He grabbed my fist with one hand, twisted it painfully. My other hand instinctively attacked his most vulnerable spot, but he was faster, grabbing my wrist with his free hand. He transitioned smoothly, pulling both my hands above my head, controlling them with one hand. His free right hand locked my neck. He lowered his head, his long hair brushed my collarbone, breath warm on my face. "Who told you to treat me casually? I've spoiled you." Our faces were less than 10 centimeters apart. His uneven, warm breath tickled my skin. My throat tightened. "You're going to fight the one who spoiled me? Then slap yourself twice." His eyes reflected only me. Over the past year, outside of missions, I'd spent a lot of time with him. How could I not feel that Chase treated me differently? I smiled lightly, whispering, "Perverted alpha." Chase probably got annoyed. He immediately silenced me with a kiss. His lips attacked like a fight. Our shared alpha scent made me instinctively resist, wanting to bite. In the end, he bit my lower lip with sharp canine teeth. When he pulled away, a thin thread of blood remained. I licked my wounded lip, scolding him, "Dog!" Before he could take further action, I pushed him away and slipped off, making my escape. 21. The war continued, and missions meant inevitable injuries. Every time I woke up in the infirmary after being hurt, Chase was always there at my bedside, sometimes just watching me, sometimes working at a desk nearby. The most extreme incident was when I woke to see him aiming at my face. I froze completely. Once I registered what was happening, I flushed with rage. A soldier can be killed, but not humiliated. All right, I'll kill you once you recover," he said hoarsely, then used the tissues. The entire room was suffused with his scent, strong, like hard liquor. I almost triggered an alpha stress reaction, but moving even slightly made my arm wound throb. I collapsed back onto the bed, a weak alpha whose territory had been invaded. Chase washed his hands in the infirmary, glancing at my misery. After placing a quick kiss on my forehead, he left. "Rest well. I'll see you tonight." I had no strength to speak, so I raised a finger at him to express my feelings. Unexpectedly, he didn't show up that night. My heat hit first. The heat period is every alpha's darkest, most agonizing moment. My infirmary was upgraded to level 1 isolation. Anything movable or potentially throwable was immediately removed. Sitting on the bed, fury churned in my blood. I wanted to kill, I wanted to die. This is what heat does. It was my 4th heat, and I still wasn't used to it. Perhaps I needed an Omega to get through this. Don't bite yourself." Snapping back to reality, I saw an alpha standing in front of me. In my heat, I attacked without thinking, punching him and releasing my scent aggressively. Alpha scent is extremely potent to other alphas, but he caught my fists effortlessly, seemingly unaffected by my scent. Just a frown. After restraining my hands, he unbuckled his belt and tied me up with it. "Let go." I bared my teeth, eyes red. "Don't bite yourself, or I'll break your jaw," said a low, stern yet exasperated male voice. The haze cleared, and I saw who stood before me. It was Chase. He wore a military dress uniform, forehead glistening with sweat, clearly rushed from some event. I drew a deep breath and admitted, almost painfully, "I feel terrible. I need an Omega." Chase's eyes narrowed, a faint smile touched his lips as he stroked my face. "No, you don't want an Omega. You want scent, and I can give it to you." He turned me over, pinning me to the bed. I sensed danger and struggled violently. "No, I don't want you. Alpha marking alpha violates nature. No pleasure can come from it. Every discomfort is amplified for a heat-stricken alpha." I wasn't a match for him. He held me down, lips pressing briefly to the back of my neck. I groaned as his canines grazed my gland. Alpha glands aren't naturally adapted for marking like Omegas. The moment scent entered my gland, it felt unbearable. But slowly, heat spread from the back of my neck, rippling through my body. I groaned in a mix of discomfort and unexpected sensation. Chase flipped me over, pressing his lips to mine. I gradually responded, a faint sense of relief mingling with my resistance. When the kiss nearly drained my oxygen, Chase pulled back. He kneeled at my waist, undoing the formal tie. His star-adorned jacket fell to the floor. Then the shirt, pants, and my hospital gown. In the high-level isolation room, the scent of liquor and passion fruit collided, then merged. 22. A week later, I curled in bed, pale as if drained by a vampire. "You're not really an alpha." The culprit stood at my bedside, buttoning the second-to-last button of his shirt, radiating vitality. He glowed like a monster who had feasted on immortal meat. His long hair shimmered more than ever. Damn, I hadn't had time to mess with him these past days. What shampoo does he use? His scalp is indestructible. Chase bent down to kiss me. I buried my lower face in the blanket. He changed course and kissed my forehead instead. "I never said I was an alpha." I thought carefully. I really hadn't. Yet everyone thought he was an alpha. Everyone had been fooled. Chase was an enigma. An alpha-marking enigma. 1 in 10 million on the planet. A true apex predator. I'm going to a meeting in Building D. Once I finish, I'll come back to you. Go. Don't come back unless necessary, I said sincerely. He smiled and refused. Once he left, I rolled from my back to my side. Honestly, being marked by an enigma as an alpha, it hurt, and yet it felt so good. Even though it felt like my reproductive cavity might split, his terrifying size actually fit. In a daze, I wondered, maybe it's like the other alphas at the training camp said, because I differentiated late, my reproductive cavity is looser. 23. After my heat passed, my injuries healed quickly. I resumed daily training. The only difference was that I had to use a whole bottle of scent isolation spray each day, to prevent colleagues from smelling Chase's scent on me. Returning to the dorm at night, Chase would skillfully pick the lock and enter. I lay on the single bed, exasperated. Isn't the big villa nice enough? Why do you have to squeeze in here? Isn't the villa nice? Why do you have to go back to your slum? A vein throbbed on my temple. Sometimes I really wanted to challenge these privileged elites. Chase went straight to the shower and emerged with water droplets still on him. I swallowed hard, sternly refusing. Put on your clothes and don't misbehave. After misbehaving, then I'll dress, he said. He tried to climb into bed. I pushed back to the wall, cornered, and said helplessly, really can't. I have training tomorrow. Back when I was beta, I thought alpha stamina was inhuman. Now, an alpha myself, I realized there are always greater beings. Enigmas were true monsters. No training tomorrow. There's a visiting inspection team. All lieutenant colonels and above must attend. He said that and climbed on anyway. After hours of tossing and turning, I was almost falling asleep upright. He wiped me with a clean, damp towel, kissed my forehead, and said, the war is about to end. I briefly cleared my mind, then drifted back into sleep. 24. After nearly 4 years of fighting, the war was finally coming to an end. This inspection team is the advance force for post-war planning, Chase told me. Led by Chase, I lined up with the others to welcome them. I didn't expect to see a long-lost familiar face in the group, Nico. He was one of the senior officers leading the inspection. As he passed by me, I noticed the medals on his shoulder, 2 ranks higher than mine. His gaze lingered on me for 2 seconds before moving forward with the crowd. I stood rigid in place. With my rank, I was at the very back, far behind Chase and Nico at the front. I overheard the gossip of officers beside me. The one at the front, such a young colonel, must have connections. His boyfriend's grandfather is a general. No wonder. For a moment, my mind wandered. Nico's boyfriend, that must be Leo. Over the years, I had deliberately avoided news of Nico. I hadn't expected he and Leo were still together, and that he had been promoted so quickly. True to form, Nico. Surprisingly, I felt no bitterness. Instead, I was genuinely happy for him. Nico had always been exceptional. It was good, his future was indeed bright. At the evening banquet, I had a couple more drinks than usual, then excused myself early, claiming I was drunk. I wandered the empty training ground to feel the wind. Before long, someone appeared. I tossed him a can of sparkling water. Had a heavy drink, right? Have some light stuff instead. Nico took it and sat beside me on the stone steps, silently opening the can and drinking. When he finished, I lightly tapped his shoulder. So, your rank is 2 levels higher than mine, and I'm still fine. Why are you sulking first? He let out a small, bitter smile. When have I ever sulked at you? And you should already know how I got my colonel rank, so don't tease me. I had indeed heard from colleagues that Nico had only been on the front line for a year before being moved to logistics. Probably because Leo feared he might get hurt. I changed the topic. Hugo is doing well at the 3rd Military District Hospital. As long as everyone survives, the war is nearly over. I raised my can to him. To peace. To peace. The cans clinked with a dull sound. We carefully avoided topics that might hurt each other, sharing stories from the past few years. Mostly, I talked while he listened. When something amusing came up, he'd squint his eyes and smile. Gradually, we both relaxed. After all, childhood friends could remain close, even if they couldn't be lovers. Night deepened, stars flickering. A breeze passed, and the scent isolation spray slowly wore off. I smelled Nico's grass-like scent, pure, with no traces of anyone else. He must have smelled mine too. I clenched my can tightly. You are with Chase. I admitted it openly. With anyone else, I might have hidden it. Getting involved with a direct superior isn't exactly flattering. But there was no need with Nico. I teased him, watching his serious expression. So, you're prejudiced against AA relationships? Nico lowered his head, a bitter smile on his face. You wouldn't date an alpha. Otherwise, why didn't you choose me? And I know Chase is an enigma. Because Chase pursued me. 25. Chase pursued me. Hearing it from Nico was like a thunderbolt on a clear day. I have no memory of how I got back to the dorm from the training ground. Nico wouldn't lie, and he had no reason to. Besides, there were traces that corroborated his words. After returning from the special training camp, Nico had been vague about certain events. Chase and I first met at a bar near the school. Why would a stationed major general be at a bar near the academy? Because Nico frequented that bar too. Even at the training camp, when Chase first spoke to me alone, the first thing he mentioned was Nico. At that time, he didn't know Nico and I had broken up. One of the top students last term. I should have taken both of you in. I sat on the bed, back against the wall, one leg bent. Cold seeped from the wall into my body. So Chase's approach back then wasn't entirely innocent. Chase liked alphas. Nico is an alpha, he always was. The dorm door opened. Chase came in, frowning. Why are you back so late? Out meeting your old flame. I couldn't find you. Chase. I cut him off. Are you looking for me or Nico? His eyes flickered. Why ask that? He was flustered. I gave a self-mocking smile. Can't have Nico, so you go after his ex. Chase, you really have no limits. Chase's expression darkened. It's not. Leave. Let me explain. I grabbed the enamel cup nearby and threw it at him. Get out. Chase frowned and dodged. Calm down. If you don't leave, I will. I put on my shoes and headed for the door. Chase blocked me. Our eyes met. I was filled with rage and unhidden sadness. After a moment, he gave in, lowering his gaze. I'll go back first. Calm down. Whenever you want to hear my explanation, I'll be here. He left, and I slammed the door. How ridiculous. I realized Chase's special treatment of me was because I was Nico's ex. He admired Nico's leadership, but I was just a reckless guy. No wonder at the training camp, when he praised Nico's class as the only one that didn't revolt, it was satisfaction, admiration, not just casual observation. Chase, bastard. 26. 2 days later, in the office of the highest commander of the military district, I pushed the door open and slammed my application form onto Chase's desk. Why was my request to join the mission rejected? Chase sat behind the desk, and seeing my expression, his tone softened slightly. This mission is too dangerous. You don't have enough experience. The whole team can go, but I can't. Are their missions somehow less dangerous? I told you, you've only been enlisted for 4 years. They're all veterans with over 8 years of service. You lack experience. And your teammates didn't object to my decision. I raised a mocking smile. Who dares question your decisions? Are you really using your authority to suppress me, Chase? That's disgusting. Chase closed his eyes, his brows pressing low in both restraint and displeasure. Do you have to speak like that? I leaned over his desk, hands braced, staring him in the eye. What? You get to make the decision but won't let me talk. Exploiting subordinates, you pervert who likes married men. Craig. Chase was genuinely angry now, his gaze sharp enough to feel lethal. Out. I shivered uncontrollably, gritting my teeth as I turned to leave. He was using his scent to dominate me. He was using his scent on me. At that moment, I despised it with every fiber of my being. Even though I had fully differentiated into an alpha, I was being suppressed like an omega. And worse, there was no medical way to remove an enigma mark. Unless I destroyed my glands, Chase's mark would remain with me for life. I let out a bitter laugh. Once the war ended, the first thing I would do after retirement was remove the glands. 27. Eventually, I got approval for the mission. It would be my final task before the war ended. We were assigned to escort a returning scientist safely across the border. He was a prodigy in life sciences, not yet 30, and an Omega named Damon. I was responsible for his close protection. On the first day, we received him at the Imperial border and traveled all day. By night, he was exhausted, so we found a cave to rest. I chatted with him to help him relax and asked about his research. You study life sciences. Do you know a way to remove an enigma mark? He blinked. Your partner is an enigma, then you've come to the right person. I've actually researched that before, though it was put on hold. Once I'm back in the country, I'll resume the study. I immediately said, if you figure it out, I'll be your first clinical trial. Damon smirked. Deal. That night, aside from Damon, we took turns keeping watch. I had the late shift, from 3 to 5 in the morning. While patrolling, I suddenly noticed rustling sounds. I put on thermal goggles and saw dozens of red dots approaching. I immediately woke my partner. At the same time, I quickly eliminated the scouting mechanical mice. Even though I detected them early, our numbers were too few compared to the enemy. 1 teammate was killed, 2 were seriously wounded, and 1 was lightly injured. Our team was down to 8. we began a desperate escape. This top team of the 3rd Military District kept losing members. Death followed closely. I thought that after 4 years on the front line, I was strong enough. But when only the captain and I remained, I still felt utterly helpless. We were near the federal border, and once we crossed, someone would meet Damon, ensuring his safety. But now, one of us was severely wounded and the other lightly injured. Damon, the only uninjured member, was non-combatant, the one we were protecting. I was the severely wounded one, a bullet in my left shoulder just above my heart. Hold on. We'll be home soon. The captain, eyes red, pressed on my wound. Damon's face was pale, tears welling as he sprayed a hemostatic spray on me. But the can emptied after a few sprays. Shaking it violently did nothing. I restrained his hand, shook my head with a smile, and told the captain, I'll draw off the pursuers. You take Damon back. The captain clenched his jaw, veins standing out on his temple. I knew he didn't want me to risk my life, but he knew it was the right choice. If our injuries were reversed, he would make the same decision. Damon finally broke down, covering his face, silently sobbing. I gently removed his hands and smiled. Don't cry. You're a great scientist. If you stay here, they'll just make you work on biological weapons. Back home, you can pursue your own research and save more lives. And don't forget, look into how to remove an enigma mark. He nodded through tears, some of which splashed onto my face. Time was critical. Ignoring my bleeding wound, I gritted my teeth, grabbed my weapon, and gestured to the captain before moving off to draw the enemy away. Chase had once told me I was born for the battlefield. He wasn't wrong. I hated the losses war brought, but I thrived on the life-or-death adrenaline of the front line. I led most of the pursuers away, taking out a dozen, though I was hit by 2 more bullets and exhausted. Lying in the grass, I reflected. Chase's special training was truly effective. If I hadn't endured hunger and endurance training in his camp, I wouldn't have survived this long. This was why the 3rd Group Army had the lowest casualties on the battlefield. Chase, even at the brink of death, I was thinking of that bastard. My body was rapidly losing heat with my blood. The enemy footsteps grew closer. Finally, I thought I heard Chase's gunfire. Impossible, he's a general in the federal forces. He shouldn't appear on enemy territory. 28. Damon was temporarily assigned to the 3rd Military District Hospital. Every major research institute wanted him, so he was still caught in bureaucratic wrangling. He sat by my bedside, peeling an apple and speaking vividly. At the time, the captain was carrying me. As soon as we crossed the border, I saw the long-haired handsome guy leading the way. He scanned behind him, saw no one, and his expression instantly turned like a demon from hell. He asked the captain about the situation, pulled his hair under his hat, put on a black mask, grabbed his rifle, and ran straight across the border. When he carried the barely breathing you back, someone confronted him. You're a federal major general. Do you realize the negative impact and losses to the Federation if you were caught illegally entering the Empire? Damon finished peeling, set down the knife, and bit into the apple himself, mumbling. He said, I am a major general of the Federation, but Chase is just Craig's lover. I sat there stunned for a long while, then nodded lightly. He asked, so, do you still want a way to remove the enigma mark? I remained silent. Damon smiled, about to tease me, but then his gaze fell on a figure at the hospital door. Suddenly he exclaimed loudly, don't worry, I will definitely figure out a way to remove the enigma mark. Whether you choose to remove it is your decision, but I will make sure you have the choice. He winked at me and pushed the door open to leave. Surprised, I said, Chase, when did you get here? Just arrived. Thanks for coming to see Craig, Chase replied. After Damon left, Chase entered the room, eyes narrowed, exuding a dangerous aura. You want to remove the mark? I looked at his slightly haggard face. He had brought me back from enemy territory, endured countless interrogations, and never told me a word of it. I lowered my gaze and asked, have the results come through? He sat by my bedside and began peeling an apple. If you dare remove the mark, I'll drag you back and mark you again. How many rounds do you think you could survive? I only cared about the answer. What's the result? Chase's tone was casual. Nothing. I was supposed to get a promotion, but that's off now. My heart sank, and I closed my eyes. Do you regret it? The war is over. After the war, rising further in rank would become much more difficult. I opened my eyes and stared at Chase's face. He said lightly, don't belittle yourself. You matter more than a lieutenant general rank. I almost cried. No wonder an enigma can attract alphas. His words were on another level entirely. He fed me a piece of apple. Whoa, moved to tears. Go ahead, I've never seen you cry in bed before. How novel. I forced the tears back. Who's crying? Finally, I summoned the courage to stammer. So, what's going on between you and Nico? Chase raised an eyebrow. The little emperor finally relents and wants to hear my explanation. Nonsense. There's no emperor in the new federation. Your political knowledge is lacking. He pinched my cheek. The audacity. Can an alpha's face be pinched casually? Before I could react, he spoke. I admit, I did appreciate Nico at first. My words caught in my throat, heart skipping. Chase didn't pause and continued. But it was just a little fondness. I hinted at it subtly, but he rejected me because he had a boyfriend. That time I went to your school, I just wanted to see the boyfriend that had him so smitten. I remembered the night I got drunk and a sudden thought flashed in my mind. So you knew I was Nico's boyfriend that night? Yes, bastard, I muttered. Chase didn't care, instead saying, you and Nico weren't compatible. Even without that Omega, you wouldn't have gone far together. I frowned. Why do you say that? Chase leaned closer, voice lower, more magnetic. Because you're a natural alpha, ambitious. You admire strength, your eyes always drawn to the strongest among the crowd. Nico isn't that ambitious. He holds himself too tight to maintain his appeal in your eyes. There was always a time bomb between you two, the Omega just triggered it early. I was momentarily bewildered. I had never thought of it that way. I'd always moved forward, but Nico had genuinely been guiding me. Could my oblivion have made him exhausted? Chase propped his chin with one hand and smoothed my hair with the other. I love that you're ambitious, like a fox. You admire strength, and I love your ambition. Chase's lips curved. See, we're a natural match. He lowered his head and kissed me. I didn't resist. Back then, Nico and I both had faults. As I always say, we can only keep moving forward, until we meet the one truly right for us. Luckily, my destined person appeared. He was domineering but understanding. In the year peace doves once again carried green branches, we decided to love each other.